Under the announced policy of January 3, 2025, the chair recognizes the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Green, for 30 minutes. You are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And still I rise, Mr. Speaker. I rise today to first announce two pieces of legislation, and thereafter I will go into my message, which will be the impact of President Trump's engagement in the peace process between Israel and the Palestinians. First, let's look at the two resolutions. The first resolution is our Black History Month resolution. I'm proud to say that this resolution will be filed on tomorrow, and this is the original Black History Month resolution for 2025. We have many persons who have signed up to co-sponsor, but it is still not too late for additional persons to sign up. The theme is for African Americans and labor. It deals with African Americans and labor in America. And it will trace the history of labor from enslavement through current times. The second resolution is one that I'm very proud to present. This is a resolution for Slavery Remembrance Month. As you know, August of 1619 was the year that enslaved persons from Africa were introduced into the colonies. And since that time, we have had an adverse impact on African Americans in the United States of America. Well, we need to retrace some of the history of what actually happened, not just on one day. We have a Slavery Remembrance Day that we proposed. Now we are proposing a Slavery Remembrance Month. There's still time to sign on to this resolution as well. We will file it tomorrow. So if members desire to be original co-sponsors of either of these two, they have until the close of business tomorrow or until we have our last opportunity to file tomorrow any type of legislation. I would suggest by noon tomorrow for members who want to file. Now, let me get to my message. The impact of the president on the peace process. The impact of the president on the peace process. The president, as it relates to this process, is not an honest broker. He is not an honest broker because an honest broker has to be impartial. The president has made it perspicuously clear that he is not impartial. He has already sided with Israel, and the president has every right to do that, to side with one side as opposed to another. But let's be clear about the role that he's playing. He's not playing the role of an honest broker. The president is not playing the role of a negotiator, because the president does not seek to get input from the Palestinians. The president will get input from one side, that will be the Israelis, and he will make his decisions with the Israelis. And it appears that there will be an all or nothing offer made. The president has gone so far as to say that certain things must be done or certain conditions will manifest themselves. The president doesn't want peace. It appears to me that the president wants to stop the killing. And there's a difference between stopping the killing and peace. Peace requires more than the absence of tension, the absence of violence, the absence of killing. Peace requires justice. Justice. Stopping killing is not going to end the process because you won't have justice for all parties involved. And there must be justice for all parties involved if we are to have genuine peace between Palestinians and Israelis. The president appears to currently be engaging in a process of ethnic cleansing. This is where his thoughts are. He seems to believe that we can take Gaza from the Palestinians. He seems to believe that the Gazas can be relocated. Just place them someplace else. Give them nice homes in some other place and let us, meaning the United States or Israel, have Gaza. Friends, That won't happen because the Palestinians have made it very clear that they don't intend to leave their homeland. But there's more to it than simply replacing them, putting them someplace else. We have to think about what the president is saying. The president is making it clear that we are an existential threat to the creation of a Palestinian state. Because if you remove the Palestinians from the land that was once Palestine, they won't have a Palestinian state there. We indeed are an existential threat to Palestine. And in fact, if the language that the president is using as it relates to the Palestinian, if it were used as it relates to the Israelis, the president would have some serious problems. You cannot say with any degree of credibility that we ought to remove the Israelis from Israel, which is now in land that was once labeled Palestine. You can't say that. If you say from the river to the sea, you are saying that you are proclaiming an existential threat to exist as it relates to the state of Israel. The mere statement, whereas Israel's Knesset has already, by way of resolution, indicated that there will not be a Palestinian state in the land of what we now call Gaza, in the land of what we now call the West Bank, that there won't be a Palestinian state. And if there's not going to be a Palestinian state, then Israel is declaring that it is an existential threat to the creation of a Palestinian state. So the president doesn't want a Palestinian state. He's with the Israelis. The president wants Gaza. He wants the West Bank to be controlled and possibly become a part of Israel. This is not the way to achieve justice. Remember, you cannot have peace without having justice. You've heard the phrase, no justice, no peace. Well, there has to be justice for us to have peace. And the president is willing to sacrifice the Palestinians. He seems to be willing to sacrifice them because he's indicated as much as if a certain thing doesn't happen, if hostages aren't returned by a certain time that he has chosen, that all hell will break loose. Well, that seems to indicate that he's willing to see an inflagration unlike we've not seen so far, something more than we've seen so far, because quite frankly, Gaza has been decimated. The roads have been destroyed, bridges have been destroyed, schools have been destroyed, hospitals have been destroyed, homes destroyed, people killed. And until we decide that we want peace, then we're not going to have the kind of place that people should have as a homeland for Palestinians. There has to be peace, and to have peace, there must be justice. And to have justice, we have to at least decide that there are certain things that we're willing to do. Justice is going to require equal respect for the lives of all babies. Equal respect for the lives of all babies. I will tell you that I, just as early as this morning, had tears to well in my eyes when there was a story about the Israeli babies that were returned after they had been held hostage by Hamas. Hamas did a dastardly thing in taking babies as hostage. Israel has done nothing that would warrant Hamas to take babies as hostages. And then for those babies to be returned in caskets. It's heartbreaking. Those parents had to suffer immeasurable heartache as a result of what happened to their children. Those babies were young babies, infants. Hamas is not an organization that seeks peace. If you're going to do these kinds of things, you're not seeking peace because what you did was not just. It was an injustice to take those babies. And it was an injustice to keep those babies. And now you're returning them lifeless to their parents. And they have to suffer for the rest of their lives knowing what happened to their babies. But you can't stop there. All babies have to be treated equally. The lives of all babies have to be treated equally. You cannot say that it is shameful and sinful for Hamas to do what they did to those Palestinian babies and not condemn what Israel has done to the Palestinian babies. Babies have been bombed, body parts scattered all over. Parents, one parent just had the baby born and was about to register the baby, comes back and the baby is no longer alive. All babies have to be treated equally. Their lives have to be respected in the same way, regardless as to where they are, where they're from, what their ethnicity is. We cannot continue to believe that some babies have lives that are more valuable than others. Nothing Israel has done merits what Hamas did to the babies that they took hostage, or other babies that may have been killed as well. And nothing that the Palestinians have done merits the killing of, nothing that the Israelis have done merits the killing of Palestinian babies to the extent that they have been killed. Palestinians cannot have done anything that would merit Israelis killing their babies to the same extent that they have. Israelis have to understand that Palestinian babies have lives that have to be respected to the same extent as they want Israeli babies' lives to be respected. And by the same token, Palestinians have to respect Israeli babies' lives to the same extent that they want Palestinian lives to be respected. All babies have to be respected equally. All babies. And so today I want to say to the Israelis and the Palestinians, there will be no peace until you respect the babies equally. But you've got to do more than this, and we have to do more, because we have to rebuild Palestine. I say we, I believe the United States has to make a contribution, just as we contributed to the rebuilding of Japan after we dropped bombs on Japan, just as we have contributed to the rebuilding of other places when we've been involved in the destruction. We helped to destroy Palestine. Yes, I know that what Hamas did was dastardly. I understand that, and it shouldn't have been done. But that did not give Israel the right to kill babies and innocent people to the extent that Israel has killed these babies and innocent people. We have to respect their lives. Now we have to respect their property. There has to be a home for Palestinians, and that home has to have some help from the United States, because we sent our weaponry over there. We helped to pay for weapons that were used to bomb the Palestinians. The bombs, many of them were actually munitions that came from us. We have a duty to respect their lives and their property, and we have a duty to help to rebuild. This is something that we can't push off on others. And we can't just decide, Mr. President, that the Palestinians should not have a state and that we can just simply take their land. This land belongs to them. It was theirs in 1948. The majority of the people in Palestine in 1948 were not people who were there to have a state of Israel. People came into this place called Palestine and helped to build and construct the state of Israel. And I have said that a two-state solution is a solution. But you can't have a two-state solution without respecting the babies that are Palestinian and the land that was once Palestine. So we've got to give Palestinians a homeland, more specifically a state, and Palestinians have the right to live there with sovereignty, not to be told what to do by others, not to have the flow of their electricity controlled by others, not to have others to determine whether they can have ingress and egress. They've got to have a state. But that means that there has to be some negotiation. It can't just be dictation. The president wants to dictate what the policies will be and expect everybody to live happily thereafter. If we want true peace, then, Mr. President, you've got to cease to be a dictator and become a negotiator. You're going to have to talk to the Palestinians and get their opinions about what they want. And you've got to decide that you cannot side with one side and conclude that that is going to give you the necessary strength to bring peace about. You may have calm, but you won't have peace. And you won't have the kind of peace that will be lasting if you just decide you're going to stop the killing. Stopping killing does not bring about peace. It just brings about an absence of a certain amount of tension. But Dr. King reminded us that if you want peace, you have to have more than the absence of tension. You've got to have the presence of justice. The presence of justice must be accorded not only to the Israelis, they deserve justice, but also to the Palestinians. They deserve justice. Justice for both sides, peace for both sides, in one country, one place, Palestinians on one side of that place, the Israelis on the other side, two people, two homes, two sovereignties living side by side in peace. And finally, this on this whole question. Dr. King also reminded us that we have to learn to live together as brothers. This is how he put it, or we will perish together as fools. Living together as brothers, and I would add, and sisters, is an imperative. We no longer have, as Dr. King put it, a choice between violence or nonviolence. He said we have a choice between nonviolence or non-existence, and we are marching toward non-existence. As we decide who is going to have certain pieces of land and how land is going to be divided, many countries who are viewing this are concluding that to protect themselves, they're going to have the ultimate weapon. Just as North Korea made that decision, others are making that decision. I don't support any of those decisions. I don't support any nuclear weapons. I'd like to see the absence of nuclear weapons across the globe. But I also understand that they exist. And I understand that others are going to want them to protect themselves from us, from the United States, from Israel. They're going to want them to protect themselves from other countries that have them. Friends, it is no longer the choice between nonviolence or violence. The choice is going to be between nonviolence or non-existence. And we have to learn to live together as brothers and sisters, or we will perish together as fools. Those were the words of Dr. Martin Luther King. I stand for peace, peace between Israelis and Palestinians, and I stand for loving all babies the same. The lives of all babies should be treated equally. Hamas shouldn't hide behind babies, but that doesn't give you the right to just kill babies indiscriminately. Thousands of babies killed. You can't do that. That is antithetical to having a just society where peace presides. So I present to you my belief that if we are to have true peace, there has to be justice. And if there is to be justice, all babies have to be treated equally. All babies have to be respected equally. All babies' lives are equally as important. Doesn't matter where they are or who they are. I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentlemen.